My wife and I took our youngest son to the doctor. We thought he had an ear infection, and it kind of escalated to an accusation of child abuse. About 6 months later, I was arrested and accused of abusing my infant son. I was shocked. I was very surprised that I was being looked at as someone who has abused their child. I had taken my son for help, and I just couldn't believe the situation that my family was in. Immediately after my arrest, I was restricted from having contact with my then 6-month son and my 3-year-old son. After I was arrested, my family was kind of scrambling to find help. My parents had come across Puget Law Group. They reached out directly and was put in contact with Jared Osser. Jared instructed my parents to have me come down immediately because he thought he could help me.
I remember the first meeting with Mike. He came in and was devastated. His kids had been taken away. They were tearing his family apart. He was insistent he didn't commit the crimes that they say he committed. I went through the enormous amount of discovery with Mike and the doctors and all of the medical evidence, and it was clear to me that he was telling the truth, which created an enormous amount of pressure on me, because it's not often that you have a client that you know didn't commit the crime that it's facing upwards of 20 years in prison. And so there became a point in time where we decided we're going to push forward and demand our trial.
A week before the case, the state offered me a plea deal for a very low misdemeanor, no jail time. And I said, no, I didn't do anything wrong. And I'm not taking a deal.
Mike was a difficult case because he had a 7-week-old who sustained multiple fractures unexplained. The state continued to delay on his case. Mike did everything right. Why would he take the baby to the hospital where there were non-life-threatening injuries to make it known that the child had suffered injuries if he in fact inflicted them? It made no sense. We spent an enormous amount of time building a case of who Mike was as a dad, nurturing, caring, loving father, wholly inconsistent with the monster that would have necessarily inflicted these injuries, and they didn't match up. I remember telling Mike, don't be surprised if they take days to deliberate on this case because of what was at stake. 45 minutes after closing, them taking the case, we had a verdict, which means that they deliberated for about 15 minutes. And he's obviously standing next to me when the jury comes in, and he was in tears essentially. And when the judge said not guilty, he just broke down. I think because he also recognized that was it. It was over. He was going to be found not guilty of all the counts, and he was done with this. It would be impossible for it not to have a lasting impact, because it's so rare that you have a client as innocent as Mike was, which creates more pressure, obviously, but greater satisfaction when the jury gets it right.
I basically had to put my complete faith and quite literally my life in Jared's hands. Once the jury came out and read their verdict, it was like a lot of weight lifted off my chest. If someone is in the same position as I am, I would absolutely recommend Puget Law Group. Puget Law Group, and working with Jared, you're working with someone who's going to fight for your best interests, and in my case, fight for my family's best interests. Going through something like that, the most stressful thing in your life, I think there's some peace in knowing that you're going to have somebody that's going to be in your corner and advocate so strongly for you and your family.